Welcome to The Real Deal with Jason Silverman, the podcast dedicated to helping you build the business of your dreams and live the life you always hoped for, with valuable and fun tips and info to make your life easier and more fun. And now, here's your host, a man who sprinkles metal shavings on his breakfast cereal just for fun, Jason Silverman.
Hello everybody and welcome to The Real Deal with Jason Silverman. I'm your host, Jason Silverman, and I'm thrilled to share some time with you once again today. As you know, I am always on the hunt for interesting as well as super smart real deal guests to bring to you. And I gotta tell you, today's show is a winner. I want to introduce my listeners to somebody who's been there and done that, and as always, I selfishly get to pick his brain for your benefit today. So, for the folks who I work with in any of my coaching programs, mastermind groups, or through Powerful Words character development, all-star cheer sites, or dance sites done right, you know how much I focus on leveraging all the possible marketing opportunities out there, right? Well, today we're going to focus on something that you may not necessarily have been thinking about, but I think it's going to be a winner for you. So, today it's going to be my honor and privilege to share an amazing resource with you. You're going to love today's guest. He's got a ton of valuable info about what I consider to be a super hot topic that's going to help you to succeed, and he's got a cool way to deliver it as well. So I want you to strap yourself in. Today's show is going to be a blast. As I'm sure you already know, I'm committed to helping business owners to become more successful, enjoy your career more, and in general, make your life significantly more fun. All right, boys and girls, it is now that time. I want you to put down your phone, stop surfing Facebook, get rid of your tablet, put down your child, your dog, your cat, your spouse, whoever, anything that might possibly interfere with your ability to focus on today's show. You're about to get some great and immediately usable information, and I don't want you to miss even a second. So, before we officially get going, I want to give you a little bit of background about our guest today. Jason Hartman is the founder and CEO of Platinum Properties Investment Network, the Hartman Media Company, and the Jason Hartman Foundation. Starting with very little, Jason, while still in college at the age of 19, embarked on a career in real estate while brokering properties for clients. He was investing in his own portfolio along the way as well. Through creativity, persistence, and hard work, he soon joined the ranks of the top 1% of realtors in the U.S., and in quick succession earned a number of prestigious industry awards and became a young multimillionaire. While running successful real estate media businesses, Jason also believes that giving back to the community plays an important role in building strong personal relationships. He established the Jason Hartman Foundation in 2005 to provide financial literacy education to young adults, providing the all-important real-world skills not taught in school, which are the key to the financial stability and success of future generations. We're in a global monetary crisis caused by decades of misguided policies, and the cycle of financial dependence has to be broken. Literacy and self-reliance are a good start. Jason, I'm thrilled to welcome you to The Real Deal.
Hey, thanks, Jason. I hope we don't confuse your listeners with our names being both Jason and Jason.
I think it's going to be great. So I'll tell you what.
You've got Jason squared here today, folks. Jason squared.
What's better than that, right?
Yeah,
double dose of Jason.
That's
so,
right.
Before we get started, for those who haven't yet had the opportunity and pleasure to meet you or hear you speak, do me a favor. Take a quick second. Share your story with everybody. What are you passionate about? What makes you tick? Who is Jason Hartman?
Yeah, well, thanks. So you mentioned a lot of it in your intro. I basically grew up as a latchkey kid, and I think that's why speaking to your audience will be interesting and hopefully very valuable today. I'll try to contribute as much as I can to them. And as a latchkey kid with a single mom, after school activities, I had them at times during my childhood and not at other times. And I think I can talk about that a little bit, but also, I grew up really without much resources at all, economically. And so when I hit about ninth grade and I noticed that, all the cutest girls in junior high school were hanging around with the guys who came from money and, had nice clothes and nice things and were about to get nice cars, I thought, this money thing is kind of important. It really is. And that's when there was an awareness of that for me, that I wanted to not live my adult life in economic scarcity. And so I got into real estate in my first year of college. I did very well at it at a very young age. And then I purchased my own real estate company after that, and that was a huge struggle. And then I sold that company to Coldwell Banker back in 2005. And about a year before, I started a real estate investment company, which is distinctly different from a traditional real estate company, as most people would think of it, where I basically help people build real estate portfolios nationwide. So we help investors acquire properties in different markets around the USA that we like and we've vetted and we've researched and we think are good places to invest. And the evolution of that took off very nicely in like 2004, 2005, 2000. And in 2006, I discovered something called podcasting, which I think could be a big benefit to your listeners. And that's the focus of our discussion today. And it has really revolutionized my real estate investment business and other businesses I have as well that I have podcasts for. And so that's what we'll talk about today, and how your listeners might benefit from starting their own podcast and how they can develop community, reach more new clients and customers, basically get their message out, and really run their business in a much more efficient way through podcasting.
That sounds fabulous. And folks, I got to tell you, I want you to make sure that you expand your mind and you're ready to take a listen to this, because I got to tell you, the more I think about this, many folks who know me know that I find it to be so important to engineer your own success and your own celebrity. And one of the ways you can absolutely do that is through podcasting. So we've got a master on the line, so let's get to brain picking. So Jason, tell me this. How has podcasting helped grow your business empire?
Well, basically, I discovered it in 2006, I think it was, when I was driving around Newport Beach, where I lived at the time, on a Saturday afternoon, and I was listening to Leo Laporte. Many people have heard of him. Leo Laporte was on KFI, which is a big Southern California radio station, and he's known as the tech guy. And so people always call Leo Laporte and ask their tech questions, how do I get my computer to work? What do I do with my website, et cetera, et cetera. And someone called and asked about podcasting, and I had never heard that word that a journalist coined back in 2004. And I was very interested because at the time I had a weekly radio show on a Los Angeles radio station called KRLA. And I used to publish this radio show every week and talk about real estate, and people would call in and ask me real estate questions and all this kind of stuff. And I thought, podcasting, isn't that interesting? And at the time, my company was spending a heck of a lot of money on radio advertising as well, where we would do, 60-second commercials and run them on various radio stations in LA, San Francisco, Phoenix, even Austin, Texas. And we would do that to attract real estate investors as customers. And there were times when we were spending about $250,000 every year, about $250,000 on radio advertising. It was a huge part of our budget and a very expensive thing. And what we would notice, Jason, is that the people that would call and respond to those radio ads really didn't know us, didn't trust us, didn't understand what we did to help clients and so forth, and they just weren't educated. And it was a very hard learning curve to explain to them what we do, why it's important, how they can create wealth through investing in real estate. And it was just a very short form, direct response type of thing. And it was okay. It certainly wasn't great, though. And what I found is that in my business, I wanted to really develop a relationship with people. I wanted to give them a chance to get to know me over time and to really understand my very unique philosophy when it comes to investing and some of my unique ideas about the economy and about personal finance and about Wall Street and why I think Wall Street is the modern version of organized crime. It's not like I have an opinion on this or anything. but in a podcast, I could really talk to them for hours and hours I could publish a show that was maybe an hour a week. I could interview famous guests and celebrities on my show and, get their ideas on investing and on the economy and what's going to happen next and so forth. And it was also very educational for me. There's an old saying that if you want to learn something, you should teach it. Something like that. And I do believe in that to some extent. And over the 1,600 or so interviews I've done on my podcast network that the Hartman Media Company has published, I've learned a heck of a lot from interviewing people, and I'm sure you feel the same way on your show.
Absolutely.
And, it's just a great opportunity to get to talk to the thought leaders of any industry. You can just get connected with them right away. Some very famous people that I would never normally have access to if I wasn't a member of the media publishing a podcast. So it's been a great ride. It really has.
That makes sense. It really does. So in your eyes, why do you feel, are there specific reasons that every entrepreneur should have his own or her own podcast?
Well, I think that every entrepreneur is faced with many, many challenges. And one of the challenges, of course, is advertising. And I think it was David Ogilvy, the famous advertising guru from many years ago, who's written several books. One of them, very famous, called Confessions of an Advertising Man. And he said something to the effect of, I know that I'm wasting half of my advertising budget. I just don't know which half it is. and so, people with small businesses, entrepreneurs, they're faced with huge expenses in advertising. And they really have very little control. Now, the internet has helped them a lot with this because a lot of that is much more trackable than it used to be. But it still is very challenging, and they can waste a lot of money on advertising and marketing. And so that's one challenge. The other challenge is, every entrepreneur has a sales funnel. And a sales funnel looks something like this for pretty much every business. There's the time, and this is the top of the funnel, where a consumer, a prospect or a consumer, becomes aware of that business or aware of that entrepreneur and what they do. And then they move down that funnel by inquiring and raising their hand and asking for something, maybe on a website, on a web form, and learning more about that business and gaining some trust in that business over time before they actually spend money with that business. And a podcast is a great way, if not the best way, to bring prospects and leads through that sales funnel in an automated, not totally automated, but a one-to-many fashion, where you can talk to a large group of people, and you can do it the same way you would talk with a client or a prospect one-on-one. And so, if someone has a company that provides an after-school activity, say it's a gym, an athletic endeavor, cheerleading, dance, martial arts, whatever it is, whatever your listeners are engaged in, and they probably are faced with this, where they're talking to parents and they're talking to kids about the benefits of getting involved in their organization and coming to these after-school activities and getting engaged in them. So, what are the benefits? Well, they're community, new friendships, exercise, keep the kids off the streets and keep them out of trouble, all of these different things, right? And, I'm sure they can articulate those benefits much better than I can, but that was just my first attempt. And so, they probably are saying these same things over and over and over again until they're blue in the face, right? Right. Well, wouldn't it be nice if there was a way to reach that audience before they actually contacted you, to let them hear your elevator speech, if you will, okay, and really understand much more deeply than your elevator speech what you do and why it's so important and how you impact lives and how you change lives for the better. You can do that in a podcast. I mean, think of all the things that someone with an after-school activity business can do. They can profile kids that are involved, in martial arts and how it's helping them grow and become better people and, stay fit. I mean, there's a huge problem with childhood obesity and God knows adult obesity nowadays, right? So, fitness and exercise and how it, it makes them feel better and feel more responsible and, just helps them grow as a person. They can interview and profile the kids. The kids can be on the podcast. They can talk to parents and interview them about, what it's meant to their children. They can talk about the community. They can talk about various activities, competitions, cheer competitions, martial arts competitions coming up, swim meets, whatever it is, soccer, all of these different things. I mean, there's like an endless amount of content out there. And it's a great way to communicate that content on a much more efficient, scalable, one-to-many basis. So huge opportunities there.
Fabulous. Well, let's dive in because I think obviously everyone gets more excited by the by revenue numbers. So I know I certainly do. What would you say is the revenue model for podcasting?
Well, there are several revenue models. One that's sort of obvious from the old world is the advertising model. And basically what you're doing with advertising is you're providing a potential sponsor access to your audience. And so, for example, in your audience's world, that might be a company that hosts events or matches. It might be a company that makes the equipment that is used. And there are certainly opportunities for sponsorships, right? Mm-hmm. There might be various community and charitable organizations that want to get their name out, and they might sponsor your podcast. Okay? So, sponsorships and advertising, we've all watched TV, we've all listened to the radio, and maybe we've listened to some podcasts who are employing this same good old-fashioned model of advertising, right? But I don't think that's really the best model for a podcast. It's okay, and there are many podcasters who earn a decent living from just the advertising model. Where I think it's really valuable is to just advertise, if you will, and I'm kind of saying advertising in quotes, because it's not really advertising. You're just talking about and building community and building a tribe around your own business and what you do. And I think that is a really soft sell kind of editorial way to just let people get to know you and get to know your business and why it's important. And I think that is probably the best model for your listeners. But they could do a hybrid. They could do both. They could have a couple of show sponsors that, basically offset the cost and maybe help them bring a little profit to the bottom line. And then, in addition to that, they could also advertise their own business at the same time.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It absolutely makes sense. I think that's a step that I think most people tend to forget. So that's huge. Tell me this, though. You mentioned the funnel earlier. How do people get to the funnel?
Well, what do you mean when you ask that question?
Well, we're talking about, we've got the revenue model. Obviously, I'm a big proponent of actually building a sales funnel directly for each business. So, is there a way from a podcast to start to obviously increase lead flow?
Yeah.
And then go from that level?
Yeah, most definitely. Podcast growth is usually pretty organic. And what I mean by that, Jason, is that you don't usually go out and advertise your podcast. You don't take out commercials on the radio to tell people okay, that's just not really very effective. And I have dabbled in that a little bit and tried to kind of, push it, if you will, and make it grow faster. But most of it is pretty organic, iTunes is the biggest marketplace for podcasts, and you can go and you can list your podcast on iTunes for free. and podcasts are very inexpensive to produce. This is a pretty hot growth area right now, and you can go and do that, and then people will just find you basically via the search engine known as iTunes. Okay, just like Google and Bing, iTunes is its own search engine. And there are other platforms as well, like SoundCloud and Stitcher Radio and other ones. But those are some of the big ones out there. And it's pretty organic. People find you by plugging in keywords. So, some keywords might be, and maybe it's probably best, Jason, if you brainstorm this with me because you know your market better. But, how do I keep my kid out of trouble? Okay, idle time is the devil's workshop, as they say, right? Or after school athletic, or after school activities, or ideas to help my kid make new friends, or hobbies for children, brainstorm it with me.
Well, let's face it for a sec, right? No, nobody goes to the store to buy a drill; they go to buy a future hole, right?
Right,
so
exactly.
It's no different when picking an activity for their child. Yeah, they want them to have fun, but at the end of the day, they want a result. So is it a more socially acclimated child? Is it a stronger child? Is it a healthier child? Is it a more physically fit child? Is it a child that might get a scholarship one? I mean, there are all sorts of reasons. And I think if you pick out the reasons that people come to you, that truly becomes your keywords or your specific podcasts.
Yeah, it really does. And you can have all sorts of search opportunities, Another one would be a single working parent, or, two working parents, as so many are nowadays,
right.
They can't be there for their kid after school, okay? And so they need, some activity, there's just all sorts of ideas there. We saw this huge sort of little mini revolution in mommy blogs a couple of years ago, where these mommy bloggers were gaining giant audiences. And a podcast is really nothing more than an audio or a video blog. Okay, it's just another form of blog. Instead of the blog being a text blog, it's in audio or video format.
Right. No, and it makes sense. I think this is it's such an obvious idea that it really should be something that everybody is looking at, going, okay, what else can we do? Again, for further engagement of current members, right? So,
right, yeah.
Tell me this. What have you found? What's the average time to gain your listeners' trust today? Because that trust is a huge issue. You're dealing with somebody's child.
Right. Yeah.
So how do you feel like, what's the average time it takes to gain that?
I have no idea. It's just an impossible question to answer. First of all, because obviously there are varying levels of trust, right? And it just depends. It depends on the person listening in the audience. Some people are more trusting and some people are less trusting, right? Usually if someone has been burned and taken advantage of before, they're not as trusting as they might otherwise be. It's just everybody has a different worldview on that, right? But also it depends, how good you are. What is your message? How do you sound? How do you come across? Do you sound like a trustworthy person? Does your content seem really self-interested, or does it seem more community-oriented? I'll never forget a friend of mine telling me he went and he saw a presentation where Craig Newmark was speaking, and that's the founder of Craigslist, obviously a hugely successful website, Craigslist, right? And many people have talked about how Craigslist could be an incredibly valuable company. Maybe up in the leagues of, in the leagues of big, famous, popular websites like Facebook and Yahoo and so forth. I don't know if it could be that big, but pretty darn big, okay? And one of the ways they could do that is by allowing advertising on the Craigslist website. And someone asked, and this was several years ago, asked Craig, in the audience, they said, hey, Craig, you obviously have a ton of traffic here visiting Craigslist. How about putting some little display ads on the side? And Craig's answer was just innocently, well, our community hasn't requested advertising. You just gotta love the innocence of that answer, right? Wow. But it just shows, sort of the sort of hippie community worldview, right? And I just think that's just such a funny answer. But if your podcast is overly promotional or advertising in nature, people aren't going to really trust that, and they're going to put their guard up. So I would say just invoke the old biblical law of tenfold returns. Just give, and just have the faith that it will come back to you. Put out good, solid, interesting content. Interview the thought leaders in your field, and just put out good content. And you know what will happen? Look, if you get zero business from your podcast, you're going to network with more thought leaders in your industry, and you may do business deals with them. And maybe you'll bring them into your group or your club, and have them do a workshop there for the parents and the kids, or just the parents or the kids, or do a field trip with them, and all sorts of opportunities can come out of this. Nothing but good can come out of it, and you're going to learn a lot and refine your message for marketing your business as well in constantly talking about it.
Absolutely. That's where the practice component comes in.
Yeah.
You started talking about the give thing, and I think this is a great segue to find out more. Tell me the mission that you've created with the Jason Hartman Foundation.
Yeah, so I have several companies, and when I sold my real estate company to Coldwell Banker, I started my foundation right after that, and I was a volunteer teaching junior achievement for 3 years. And my favorite junior achievement was high school, just because they knew a little bit more. And so I used to come into the senior high school class for one hour per week in their economics class. And it just blew my mind, Jason, how little these kids knew after, all those years of school and being just ready to graduate from high school, how little they knew about simple personal finance and investing, and money, and it just blows my mind that kids can go through college. They can even get a degree in finance, and they don't know about personal finance and investing. Okay? It is a gaping hole in our educational system, and it is such an important area of life. So basically, I set up the foundation to teach financial literacy to young adults. And that's mainly targeted at Generation Y, okay, the millennial generation, in their early to mid-20s. And this group, that's either got a high school diploma or a college degree, and they just know nothing about how to manage their finances and grow their money. And so that's what the foundation is all about. And it was kind of a natural to start that podcast because my podcasting network that the Hartman Media Company runs does a whole bunch of other podcasts on various subjects, and a lot of the guests have good crossover. So the podcast that the foundation does, it does two of them. It does one now for adults too, which is called the American Monetary Association podcast, and then the Young Wealth Show, which is for the Generation Y group. Very, very cool.
Very cool. Tell me this, Jason. How can our folks learn more about you? I mean, I think, I always love to introduce folks to people who are out there, paying it forward and really making a difference in future generations. So how can folks learn more about you?
Well, I started podcasting, as I mentioned, for my real estate investment company. And, we have thousands of clients and we help them invest in real estate. That website is just my name. It's jasonhartman.com. and Hartman is Hartman, so jasonhartman.com. And then for all of my podcasts, if you want to see all 20 different shows, the Hartman Media Company website is just hartmanmedia.com. And then we also mentioned the foundation, jasonhartmanfoundation.org for that one.
JasonHartmanFoundation.org. I just want to make sure that I can get these properly up on the show notes so that everybody has opportunity to go in and check you out. Yep. That is fantastic. All right. So listen, I always love to end my podcast with what I think is a really, really important and also telling question. So if you could give business owners just one solid piece of advice to either help their business or, more importantly, help them live a more balanced, better life, what would that piece of advice be?
It would be, set up systems and systematize as much of your business as you can. I interviewed Michael Gerber, who wrote The E-Myth and several related books, on my show once, and he talks a lot about working on your business and not in your business. And the way you do that is by setting up systems and having those systems run your business, and then you run the systems. And then think scalability, okay?
I think that's...
As we've been talking about here, is a great way to do that, to reach a large audience in the same amount of time that you would reach someone one-on-one. And that will really help you grow your business in so many ways, all the ways we talked about today.
Love it. Love it. Jason, thank you so much for joining me today. I know how busy you are, and it means the world to me that you take some of your time and share some of your wisdom with us.
Well, hey, the pleasure is all mine, and you, Jason, and your listeners are doing a very important thing, because they're keeping kids off the streets. They're giving them guidance, they're helping them grow, and they're helping them stay in shape and stay healthy. So that's all really a great contribution to the world. So keep it up, and I hope a lot more people listen to your podcast so that a lot more people can do that. That definitely will solve a lot of problems in the next generation. So it's good to see that you're doing that.
Again, thank you. Folks, that is all the time we've got for today. Thanks for tuning in to The Real Deal with Jason Silverman. For more information about private coaching or to see if you'd benefit from one of our mastermind groups, visit me over at www.jasonmsilverman.com. I look forward to helping you achieve the success that you truly deserve. Until next time, let me leave you with this. Get out there and be the real deal. Set a goal, make a plan, work like hell towards it, and achieve the success that you truly deserve. Now is the time. Get out there and make it happen. Go get them, folks. This has been Jason Silverman, and I hope you have a spectacular week.
You've been listening to The Real Deal with Jason Silverman. To access the great resources mentioned in the show and for information on coaching and mastermind group opportunities with Jason, please visit jasonmsilverman.com.